is we're going to start, you've been a coach for 6.5 years. And in that time, you've met literally thousands of coaches. So I want you to start with what you think is different about you when you were a new coach.
I kind of think nothing is different about me, honestly. But if I have to look back, I didn't come in with, a leg up or a certain background or anything like that. In fact, I really felt like I did have every limiting belief and all the obstacles were in my way, like all of us. But looking back, I did come in with a different perspective because I'd been an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So when I was actually thinking about this morning, when, for instance, I didn't have, like my previous business, $20,000 a month in overhead. It was like an ongoing joke that our overhead's like, whatever it was then, $17.95 or something. But I also remember being shocked that I had access to customer service. And I didn't employ them. And so I just had a different perspective when I got here. I had this insane gratitude for Beachbody where, we all know how much people can complain about customer service and things like that. Sorry, Todd. You're amazing. But I always felt like this is just this incredible opportunity, having come from the, business owner background.
So then let's talk about it. So how did you actually get in the trenches and learn the business?
Well, I have an amazing coach, Meredith Ganal. And, she had obviously trainings in place, and we had something I think called, what did we call it back then? Coach Basics training. But I think the thing that I might have done a little differently is, if you don't know me, I'm a little bit of an addictive personality. And I was obsessive about YouTube trainings. I was just kind of going above and beyond what I think even my new coaches do today. I was obsessively curious about these successful coaches, and I was then obsessively curious about how to become good at this. So I was just kind of devouring every training I could get my hands on.
Okay, so then as you are signing coaches, let's stay back then. What did you do to teach them the business, or how did you duplicate it?
It was such a we thing, and it still is. I look back and I giggle because we were just fumbling forward together. I remember Aaron Hopkins and Jolie joining the team, and Aaron trying to tell Jolie about Team Cycle Bonus, which is hilarious now because she's like the comp girl. And, Jolie came over and sat down at my kitchen table, and I explained it to her. It was always just a learning together. Mm-hmm. But I really think the reason we got coaches started was just my excitement for this and my fire and my passion. This community and this opportunity just lit me up. And that's contagious. And it goes back to what KK was saying today. Energy is contagious. It is the most important thing that we can give our challengers and our new coaches and ourselves. And I don't think I had any magical thing except a whole heck of a lot of excitement for this when I started. And so that was, passed on to them.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. And you got such an amazing team, and we're gonna go into that a little bit. But before we do, what do you wish you knew then that you know now?
I'm a big believer, and I never would change anything because all roads led me here. But I really wish I knew what was truly possible. I wish that I knew how possible it was for me. I think so much of us in this room can say that. We would never have believed when we started that we could be here now. I can just look at all these amazing faces and think none of us could have imagined our businesses would be here. And if we'd really known, we would have started sooner, So yeah, that's probably it.
Okay, so you and I first met at, I don't even remember, but I know the first time we met was at NLC. And it was a weird experience because Moira reaches out and says, Doug, I want to do a one-on-one at NLC.
I didn't know him.
Yeah, well, I didn't know her. I'd heard the name for sure. But I was like, yeah, that doesn't happen. Nobody has time for that. There's just no way to do a one-on-one at NLC. But what happened?
I don't know. Maybe I convinced you. I've never been afraid to ask. You know, and that doesn't mean I'm fearless at all. I came in with like this insane amount of insecurity and fear and self-doubt, but I've always held true to like, it never hurts to ask, you know? So I asked. I did the same thing with Carl when he flew into Charleston, and he told me no, and I like kind of like forced the situation. So I'll make stuff happen if I need to, but I really think I just reached out to you because I heard you were the guy. Like you were the guy that understood compensation or could teach compensation. I was maybe a year and a half into the business. And I had kind of exhausted the trainings on like how to invite, how to do social media, like everything we teach. But we as coaches collectively, unless you're maybe Aaron Hopkins and me, a lot of us, well, I think coach network-wise, we focus on those other trainings. We don't focus a ton on, the comp plan can be complicated, especially as a new coach. And so I needed that. Like level of knowledge, and you were the guy. So
yeah. Anyway, but
tracked you down.
What? Like you came to that meeting with some specific questions. Like you were looking for something. What were you looking for?
Probably how to build income.
Just how to build income. Okay. No,
but probably also understanding to build relationships. You know, I think it's important to build relationships with your corporate mentors, and that's certainly important to me.
Yeah.
What I remember is you asking me, my team always makes fun of me when I'm like, what's the goal? You know, I always do my Doug Moss way, what's the goal? And I said, top 10.
Yeah.
Why do you want top 10? And sorry, my team always says, will you please do the Doug Moss voice?
Let me be careful. Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
And I said top 10, but when you asked me why, I remember really sitting there thinking, I don't know, why is that the goal? And what I remember so clearly is the answer that I gave you is still so true today. And 6.5 years later, it is a huge part of, I think, why I am where I am in the business. And I told you, I just want to know if I can do it.
Yeah, I actually remember that. And I remember you saying...
I just want to see if I can do it.
Yeah. But you were like, you had a different approach to it in the fact that you were like, the people that do it are normal people. And if they can do it, why can't I? And
that took me a while to cultivate that new story, you know? But I did. I had to work really hard as a newer coach to get the, I can't do it because, I don't have that, or I don't have that, or I don't have what she has. And I had to work really hard through some Tony Robbins work to create a new story that became, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about your team. You've obviously built this incredible group of leaders, right? And you continue to develop new leaders. So I want to ask some specific questions about your organization, Team Together Rising. The question is, first of all, how do you find business builders? And I'll caveat that with, on our best of the best calls every Friday, this question is asked every week. Like it's the number one question that's asked constantly. So you seem to have a knack at finding people that build the business. How?
It's harder right now. I'll just throw myself in there. If you're
Sure.
feeling that, I'm feeling it. But it's certainly evolved over the years. I think locally, not just my PS, but locally in Charleston, talk about a self-limiting belief. I remember being the only coach in Charleston, South Carolina, and thinking like, if I lived in San Diego where my coach is, I could be successful, and then shifting that belief to, or that story to, instead of letting that be my story that I can't be successful because I'm all alone, I'm gonna go create what I see. And I think collectively we have maybe 8 local elite coaches in a very small town.
Yeah.
And so I found a lot of them locally, and they were acquaintances. They were not best friends. But I think, and it goes back to what Ashley Molstad said a couple years ago, serve the people at your dining room table. I think coaches are really quick to go to this Instagram world. And I think when I reached out to friends of friends or friends of friends of friends, there was some type of connection, some type of even loyalty there a little bit, or trust. And so they were that much more likely to stick through kind of the hesitations and the self-doubt and just stay with me. I think that's a lot harder to find in cold market. But now, of course, it's evolved into cold market.
Yeah, for sure. But I do think that it's so interesting with Charleston. I mean, you got Stephanie Myalki and Holly Hillier there. I mean, it's just this incredible city that now has so many leaders. But you brought up earlier the Hannah Roberts. I don't know how you'd let her teach your kids, but talk about. Sorry, Hannah.
Oh my gosh.
But tell me where you found Hannah.
You did not say.
I was teasing Hannah.
I found Hannah Roberts because she was my daughter Coco. She was her 4K teacher. And you guys know, as moms, we just worship our kids' school teachers, right? And so I saw Hannah, and I think this might be a little bit of a difference of when I started. I think I always had radar up. Because I had such a fire for this, it changed my life. And so I was just always looking to who can I rescue? Who can I save? Who can I give this gift to? And I see this teacher that's teaching my daughter who I adore, and she's teaching boot camps at 5 a.m. before she goes to teach 4-year-olds in the cold, in 30-degree weather in the dark. And I'm like, you need to be a coach, And I also didn't give up. I mean, she always tells the story of how she used to hide from me in the halls. And I was not aggressive, but maybe. I don't think I was. I just truly, though, what I actually remember is just really in my heart wanting a different life for her.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want her to necessarily give up teaching, but she has.
For sure. Well, and I'll add, my daughter loves Hannah and Aaron, so we're in good. Anyway, let's keep going. So you sign these incredible people. How do you get them started? How did this happen that you've got so many, not only elite, but just incredible leaders on your team?
Gosh, building leaders is something I'm super passionate about, and I've had to look back at my own business and at times gone how did this happen? And really dissect that so I can come up with kind of the roadmap. I think there's a lot of pieces. I think the fire that you have for yourself, right, is you set the pace. We hear that. You're the pace car. They saw my dreams coming true. They saw my life changing. And we were super close. So that's super key. Our team is so incredibly tight knit. And so it's not this huge departure, Moira's over there on an island having success. It's right there.
Yeah.
So being the pace setter, but also I think what we've always done really well on my team, and this was a gift that my coach gave me. She believed in me way before I believed in myself. And so I could see the vision for Hannah. I could see the vision for Aaron and Lauren and Jen and all of these coaches in here. And I just reminded, you told me that. My first team leader retreat in San Diego, you said to me, and I know you always are I said that. You said, Moira, if you can get someone to believe, you've done your job as a leader. And it's something that belief changes everything.
For sure.
So I am so just convicted in, getting my coaches to believe what is possible and just reiterating that again and again and again and again. The other thing I think is huge for growing leaders is you have to give up control. You have to I was really thinking about this morning. I was it's so interesting because we say you got to be the pace car. You got to lead from the front. You got to do all this stuff to amp up your team. But the reality is leadership on your team comes from you stepping in behind the curtain, comes from you getting out of the spotlight. And I think that two things, my insecurity coming in and my solopreneurship set me up to cultivate a team because I didn't want to be the center of attention. And I so desperately just wanted to mastermind with women. So even from the get-go, 6.5 years later, I come to my leaders all the time. They know my brain literally never stops going. But I come to them with an idea. And I'm what do you guys think? Should we execute on this? Should we do this? And so it's always a we thing. It's never a me thing. And there's plenty of times they shoot me down. They're like, not a good idea. And I'm like, all right. So it's a collective.
Sure. So, but what's interesting is it continues to happen. I mean, it's happening now deeper and deeper. We talk about organizational productivity, and Michael talks about it, and we meet about it all the time. And we're trying to drive organizational productivity. And you've got Emily Lemoyne is here, and her story. She was on the National Wake Up Call Monday. Yeah, and just an incredible story. But tell us, how does that continue to happen? I mean, it's one thing that you found these big leaders that are your PS coaches, but they're not all your PS coaches. But how does that continue to happen?
My brain's it never stops, Doug. It's like firing in a million different directions. I think the main two things are we're just a team of like really hard workers, first of all. Like we work our tails off. And so they see that, and we're just in the trenches with them. And but the other thing that I think is I don't know if it's radically different, I just think it's radically cool, is that, I work with Emily a ton, even though she's Aaron's coach. My coach that I brought here, I've barely seen her because the rest of my team is with her, because I've had all this other stuff to do. So we know each other's rising leaders no different than our own. And so they don't just get me, and their coaches don't just get them, they get all of us. Yeah,
well, and Emily's such a great story because I think the other thing you guys do better than a lot of teams is you rally behind the story. Meaning when one coach is having success, everybody's talking about. I mean, I heard Emily Lemoyne's name. I mean, she's only been a coach 7 months or 8 months or something. And it's I think I heard it 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Because everybody was telling the same story of this coach that's having success, but they're using it as they sign new coaches.
Yes, and I think that goes back to my beginnings. You and I were just talking the other day about this. My coach Meredith, definitely put me in the spotlight as I was having success. And, it totally worked to her and my advantage, but there were many times where I was like, whew, I gotta keep going. I gotta keep living up to this. She's putting me on a pedestal. She's putting me in the spotlight. She's celebrating me so much. But the cool thing is you then raise your own bar.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of what I've seen happen on our team too.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
so let's jump to what's the hardest part about this business?
Right now, I think the hardest part for sure, although interestingly enough, it's gotten easier in time because you realize it's just the nature of the business, is you pour into people and they leave. I bring coaches in and they become part of my family and countless hours. And the heartbreak is really, I feel like when coaches turn away from this business more often than not, they're really just not believing in themselves or they're kind of giving up on their dreams. And it really breaks your heart.
Yeah.
And it's just hard. It's hard to see people
I remember
leave.
One of your retreats, there was a 2-star that was all the rage and then she left. Yeah, no, I remember that. Okay, so what's the best part of this business?
The best part of this business is the people. You can't get teary. My team, I can't imagine my life without them. They've carried me through so much, especially recently, and as has this whole entire network. Even relationships with you guys, the corporate relationships, I've had so many moments. I think I've said this twice in the last year when we got together, because my team got together for Summit. And I remember feeling this at the last Success Club trip. I remember feeling this feeling of I didn't know I could love this big. I didn't know I could love this much. I think before I came into this business, it's you kind of can count the people on both hands of who you truly love. And it's 100 times that now, and the depth of empathy and sympathy and just care and concern. And it's just the people. It's the people in the heart.
Awesome. Well, We're out of time. Final question is, what advice, you got 1-stars in the room, you've got, Julie Voris in the room, what advice would you give to these guys?
Don't remind me. It's hard to present to Julie Boris. Advice. I think the number one thing is not anything that I would say that I've done and I should sprinkle my, whatever wisdom on you. I think it's the same thing that I'm going to do myself. And it goes back to KK's presentation. And for you guys that were here yesterday, remember we did that kind of process at the end? And Tony said, can you imagine starting your day like that? And I've always done his work, and I've always done that morning stuff. And psychology is 80%, and strategy is 20%. And so the number one thing that I'm already clear on that I need to implement when I go back is shifting my energy. And, being really intentional about my morning process and getting back to that. It is the biggest thing we can do for our business, 1,000%.
Awesome. Coaches, help me give one round of applause for top coach, Moira Kucaba.